Well, hello, 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 all you wonderful, beautiful trail monsters. We are live once again here at the Trail Monster brand new studio. Although you can see there's a white patch behind me here. There's a reason for that. I'm in a brand new house. This studio is actually supposed to have sound dampening / soundproofing in it. The builders forgot to put it in. They tapped into it, and that patch behind me there, they're actually supposed to put in the sound dampening here in the next week or so. So hopefully the sound will be better in here in the next podcast. But yeah, so I got a nice little white patch behind me here. It looks kind of weird, but brand new house, brand new build. But you run into problems every once in a while. But hey, we have a special guest tonight, and thank you for joining us. It is going to be another great show. Episode number 8. I always said when I started this podcast, I would do at least 10 episodes. It has been a couple months, several months since I've actually done a podcast. There's a reason for that. I was living in an Airbnb while this house was being built. And the internet there, although it was free internet, which I appreciated, it wasn't the best. And I was afraid to kind of do a podcast because, the internet wasn't the best, and I was afraid that there would be a lot of lag time. And anyway, so we're here tonight, and I see Mark, hello, in the chat. I see the caca, and I'm going to ask MTBSHEENQUEEN is our guest tonight. I'm going to ask her about the caca thing here in just a little bit, which is Kim Churchhill, and I'm going to bring her out right now. Well, hello there, Kim Churchhill. How you doing?
Hey, good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and thank you for coming on the show. And since it's a very, very small podcast, and we'll see where this goes, but hopefully, some people will jump in. I know Mark's in the chat here, so thank you for Mark for jumping in. I'm sure people will jump in. And so, MTBSHEENQUEEN. So I kind of know a little bit about the story because I've seen you on the podcast out in Bentonville and some other ones, and I know like you kind of have an affinity for like some oil slick type, and kind of fancying up the bike. So hence the name, Sheen Queen, right? Is that correct?
Yes, it actually has to do more with my work life to start. I am in like emergency response to like chemical spills and oil spills, and I had done some studies and presentations on how to differentiate between like an oil sheen on water versus a naturally occurring like biological sheen. And I was kind of like on the presentation circuit, and some coworkers started nicknaming me the Sheen Queen.
Oh wow! See, I didn't even know that part of the story that where it jumped over in the professional life into the mountain biking life. Yeah.
Yeah. I love oil. I love oil sheen, oil slick when it's on like components on the bike. Not really a fan when it's on water.
Yeah.
But I'm getting the oil slick accents for the bike, and I only got on Instagram maybe about a year ago, and I was trying to think of like, oh, what should my handle be, right? Because like your handle is everything. You got to pick a good one, and I just decided, I'm like, okay, well, Sheen Queen nickname. I like oil slick components. Let's do MTB Sheen Queen.
Well,
And the name was
pretty
born.
clever. Yeah, I really like it because it's really clever from that professional aspect, and it works really, really well over to the mountain biking world and the bike world, and so that's really, really awesome.
Yeah, it's fun. I've had a couple times like people ask me like, Sheen Queen, what is that? I'm like, oil slick. They're like, say no more. I get it now.
So I actually had my first oil slick bike paint job in the early 2000s. I had a BMX GT. I used to ride a lot of flatland BMX freestyle, but I don't even remember. I can't remember the exact name of the bike, but it was the first time I've ever seen that oil slick component come out, and was on that bike in the early 2000s. No, you still there?
Oh no, I'm losing you.
Oh, no. Yeah. We had some technical difficulties backstage. Hopefully it was kind of it'll work out. We'll get through it. We'll get through it.
I got to the thousands flatland oil slick bike, and then it was
Yeah,
just kind of cut out.
yeah. Not important. Not important. Yeah, I had my first introduction to that oil slick was that bike back in the early 2000s, like maybe 2000, 2001 that I got that bike. I actually had it stolen in Florida because I was living in Florida at the time. And I went in real quick to,
Oh no.
yeah, and this was, 2000, 2001. Went in real quick to a store, wasn't even in there 5 minutes, and, $1,000 bike gone. Yep. Which I was lucky.
Not
I
okay.
actually, yeah, it is not. I was lucky because I actually had two bikes in the back of my truck. I actually had, which I still have to this day. It's at the family farm still, a dyno comp that was a much wasn't as fancy as that other bike. So that got left behind. Of course, they stole the most expensive bike.
Of course, because it's flashy. Everyone likes the bright,
Oh
sparkly
yeah,
stuff.
When this is early 2000, 2001, this bike was over $1,000. So that's, quite a bit of money for,
Yeah.
and I was fresh out of college. I didn't have the greatest job at the time. So, money was a lot tighter than it is these days. So like that was, there was no way I could replace that at that time. Like, I saved up for several years to even like get something like that. So somebody
Yeah.
steals that. It's really devastating, man. Because it's like, imagine, like even somebody today, and we have to be real careful, even out here. I'm sure even out there, we got $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 bikes, a lot of times, and so we're really, really careful when we go to, after a ride to go eat, pretty much on, especially like if there's 4 or 5 of us, and we got like on our Forerunner, we might have like $20,000 worth of bikes,
Yeah.
on the bike at the bike rack, like, so we have to like, so we back it in so we can see it. And like when people's walking by, as we're like just eating our dinner or whatever at a restaurant, we're
Front of
just
the
like,
bike.
a lot of times people were just admiring the bikes, but like you're still like,
It's like step away from the bike. Step
yeah,
away.
yeah, literally you want like a alarm system just like to say that like don't come any closer.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like, staying overnight at a hotel is like bikes got to come in the room, right?
Oh
And
yeah, so it's the same
recently we were
thing.
staying somewhere and they said no bikes in the room, and it's like, no, that's not acceptable. And they're like,
Yeah,
well, you can just like lock it up on your rack. And I'm like, no,
no,
that's
you
not
don't
how this
understand. This
works.
is not $100 bike. This is not $1,000 bike. Some of these bikes, like even the cheap ones, are like $2,000.
Yeah. And they're
It's
like,
like
well, we have
no,
bike racks and it's safe. You can lock it up to one of our bike racks. And I'm like, locks are
no.
just like, they're a deterrent. They're not gonna, they can get clipped
Yeah,
so
you're gonna look
fast.
at the
Like, no,
best box in the world, like a angle grinder goes through it in less than 2 minutes. Like.
exactly. I'm like, this, sorry.
Yeah, I'll clean off the tires, so we don't track any mud, but it's always funny because
Mhm.
you're going up the elevator sometimes up to the 5th floor, and you got these mountain
Yeah.
bikes that you're taking up to like the 5th and 6th, 7th floor. People just looking at you like, why are you bringing in your bike? You're a weirdo. It's like, you don't
Like, listen,
understand.
this is my child. I'm not leaving it overnight in the car.
Exactly. It's like, no, the bikes are coming inside. Yeah, so we try to
Mhm.
plan it as well sometimes, where we'll stay in some type of like lodge to where you can pretty much like back up to the room. The room is kind
Mhm.
of like outside, and you kind of do that type. At least what we try to do is when we go on trips is say, hey, is there a room that's kind of like based outside? We could just take the bikes in like real quick. So you don't have to like take it up an elevator or nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. The worst is The ones that don't have elevators and you have to take it up multiple flights of stairs.
I've done that too. We've done that too. That's kind of a pain, but yeah, it has to be done, unfortunately. Yep. Been
Yep.
there, done that. Speaking of which, how is the weather out your way? Ooh. How's the
Oh,
weather
you're
out your way?
freezing on my end
Yeah,
again.
yeah, I know. Same here. How's the
Oh, you're
weather out
back.
your? Yeah. How's the weather?
The weather is, I don't want to say it out loud because I'm afraid. Although we
Oh
did
no.
have rain today. So I'm in the Metro Detroit area. We've had just an amazing fall. It's been 50 degrees, sunshine, and just like really perfect fall weather riding. It's been fantastic. Was out Friday, was out Saturday, it rained all day today. So
Of
that was
course.
a little bit of
There's
a bummer, but we
so
haven't
for
really gotten into freezing temps yet. So the dirt's good.
I'm from Ohio, so I kind of know about the weather. So for people that don't know, where are you based out of?
Oh, so I'm in the Metro Detroit area, just outside of Detroit. I'm probably 40 minutes from the nearest trail systems around here, like Stone Creek Metro Park, River Bends, and then maybe an hour, 15 minutes from really great trails in Potawatomi. Awesome kind of old school trail that they just did some cool reroutes in and made some nice little rock drops and side kicker hits. So
Nice.
it's good, mostly kind of XC trails, but we've had quite a bit of into some of our different trail systems to have them professionally flow trails. Not a lot of tech, but some cool Rudy stuff. So it's fun. It's not as great with areas that have more elevation. Of course, there's a lot of pedaling involved, but
Yeah.
beggars can be choosers.
Yeah. Which is funny because we do have elevation out here, but the problem with sometimes elevation is everything is undulating out here. So you get your downhill, but you have a bunch of punchy climbs uphill as well. So overall, you're going downhill, but a lot of punchy climbs, a lot of rock punchy climbs. So like it's 1 mile feels like 5 out here sometimes.
I'm sorry, I'm getting glitchy again.
Yeah, and it's the same here. I see. I think, hey, Joey. Joey's in the chat.
Oh, hey, Joey.
So he does the doing. Okay, so he mentioned the caca. So you are very well known for the caca.
Caw. Yeah, that's
What-
actually it actually came from the segment podcast when Adam Mock was on. It
Mhm.
was like one of the episodes promoting Ride and Shine, and he was doing this like hand thing, and it looked like a bird, and he had like a crow or raven
Yeah.
in this like picture painting behind him, and so I see him like doing this thing, and the caca came out, and it has not gone back in.
Okay. So I got a story about this. So I've been in law enforcement for 20 plus years. So one of the things we've done over 20 years of my career is so when you key up on the microphone for the radio, for the service radio, a lot of times you have a partner in the background screaming caca. I don't know where this originally came from, but this has been going on in my life for like 20 plus years. Somebody came up with that. And like, so all you hear is like a bunch of people cracking up over the radio because you just hear, and this has been going on for 20 years of my career of like, you have a partner that's maybe nearby and it's just a funny thing that they do in law enforcement, every police department, federal agency across the nation, doesn't matter if you even park rangers, you'll hear them like, okay, we got this situation. If it's not serious, like you'll hear somebody pipe up in the background going, caca! And you hear a bunch of people like over the radio just cracking up because like they're just trying to like mess up their partner.
Yeah, keep a straight face.
Yeah, to keep a straight face, and and generally it's only going to happen when it's not something serious that's not taking place over the radio. Is just, or it's just silliness, like. But
yeah. Exactly.
I've endured the caca for over 20 years of my career, and I haven't heard it for a while. And then all of a sudden, like it comes back with you guys. I'm like, oh, thought I got rid of this like a few years ago. So I don't know where the original caca come from, but I just know in my career, it's been going on for over 20 years.
And it's gonna keep going. It's crossed over now into mountain bike too. But yeah, like try not to laugh and smile when you hear someone yell out, caca.
Yeah.
Like
exactly.
I can't even say it without laughing.
Or like like as content creators, I could totally see it's like you're trying to be like, okay, I got this like Instagram post or YouTube post you're trying to do, and somebody like walks through the frame, you have to redo the take because you're like cracking up. Like I could totally see that, like especially with you, I could see people doing that with you.
Yeah, there's not a seriousness going on with me.
Which we'll get into. I see Johnny's in the chat. I want to say hi to Johnny. Mountain Bike Q&A. And so I want to talk about a little bit, kind of segue into your Instagram and the kind of the silliness I see in there, which I really love. So I want to see if I can bring. I got some pictures here. Let me see. Because you do these like funny overlays of like with like the Office and Theo Vaughn and stuff like that you'll do these silly overlays in your Instagram posts, which is kind of funny. I'm trying to see, yeah, right here. Like here's one with one The Office.
Yeah, that's the one where like. Do you ever forget to wash out your water bottle?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's where like you get, or like you've had, I think this one was like you had like an old packet of I don't remember what it was.
Yeah. So like old energy powders and gels that have been in your bag in your backpack for years. I've done a whole bunch of outer bike demo events. I don't know if anyone's heard of Outer Bike, but it's the best bike demo event in the universe. And I've seen you had there's some always free stuff. And so the first few years, it was just like this plethora of everything. And so I just, handfuls and handfuls of gels and powders and goops. And, over time, those go bad. And
yeah.
I pulled some out like in the last couple of years. I'm like, these are like 10 years old.
Yeah, they're especially if it's been sitting at the bottom of your pack for like 10 years. Like, it's just I'm like, just a glove.
You don't think this is edible anymore?
But yeah, I bring that up because I've seen going through some of your Instagram posts. Just some of the silly overlays that are like, that's pretty clever. That's pretty clever. I like it.
I like the Peter Griffin. I like to put stuff online.
Yeah, that one got me. That one really made me chuckle out loud. It really did. It was like it was just like a, kind of a delay, a random delay. It was just like, I'm like, okay, you got me with that one.
I don't know if anyone else likes it, but I like it.
Yeah, I like that one. Oh, look, Mia. Hi, Mia. She's in the chat. So all the people in chat, Kaka, how you doing? Thanks for jumping on. So how is So how is the bike treating you? So I know you on a Jameis bike, right?
I am on a Jameis Hardline. I'm on the C2 model, and it is the best bike I've ever ridden.
And this is the one, right?
I feel privileged that I've been able to ride a bunch of different bikes. Again, outer bike, thank you. I've done like 8 or 9 outer bike demo events. So I've tried a lot of different bikes over the years. And it was a July outer bike at Killington, Vermont that I demoed, actually the C1 version of this bike that has a beefier fork and has a coil instead, and also the C3 version, which is a little step down, but same Fox suspension on it. And I had demoed a couple other bikes before getting on the hard line, and they were like, right. I got on the and I went, oh my word, like this is the best bike I've ever been on. Was just so much better than the bikes I had been previously trying at the end. It's so much better than all the bikes that I rode before and all the bikes that I owned before. And I just absolutely fell in love with the bike. It seems like the geometry is just like built for me. I'm a 27.5 girl. I love
Yeah.
25 wheels. 29 it just feels too much for me for what it gets me on like a climb, and extra getting over a route is just not worth it on like the downhills and through
Yeah.
the twisty corners. It just feels so much better on a 27.5 bike, and they're kind of getting harder and harder to find. But I got on this bike and just had an absolute blast. I had actually just bought a bike, a Pivot Shadow Cat, another 27.5 bike, a few months prior, and I got home and was just like pouting for the first like 2 or 3
Oh,
rides back on my Pivot. It just like going, oh my gosh, buyer's remorse. I really miss the hard line. But some magical things worked out, and not only was I able to get the hard line, but I was able to become an ambassador for Jameis as well. And I have just been loving every minute of this bike. It suits me so well. It handles everywhere I've taken it. So it can handle, your cross country trails that you're used to seeing, minimal travel bikes. It can hit the bike parks. I did, Snow Summit and Snow Valley out in California, obviously Killington, Vermont, where I demoed, taking it over to Horseshoe Bike Park in Ontario. And it just every different trail type that it's gone on, it's just been a really great bike. It's 160 travel, so it's able to eat up just about anything I can throw at it. But also climbs really well with the 3VO suspension. So I don't feel like, I mean, climbing is awful to begin with. Let's just say that. Lift for life, please. But there's really no pedal bob. So it's just like, okay, just hunker down and pedal and go. And, I can do a 20-mile cross country ride on this bike and be fine. It's, I know I would be faster on a smaller bike, but it can do anything. It really is this all around bike, and I really put it through the ringer. One other thing that's kind of known about me besides my cacaw is that I have an affinity to trees. I like to hug them. I like
tree
to
hugger.
hit them. I like to slam into them. I like to tap them.
I've seen some videos.
I don't know how this hardline is still like surviving everything I've thrown at it, which is a lot of trees. I've thrown it at a lot of trees.
And I did see, I believe, probably one of your first rides, you have it on your Instagram, to where you're so happy and stoked about the first time that you're on that bike. I believe it's the bike you're on now are very similar. You made a post about it and was like, "Oh, this is so much better. This is so much better."
Yes.
Yeah. Just how like elated you were in that post about that bike.
And this is what I tell people, that like this enthusiasm is real. Like this bike really is amazing. I recorded that video because the Killington outer bike, they kind of had a shortage of medium bikes. So it was hard. Like I would turn a bike in and then I'd go to get another bike and then there's like no other bike, or I would have to try a different bike. And so I finally got back on that hard line again. It's a 3-day event, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Tried a few other bikes because like I would go to try to get in, they're like, oh, we're all out. And I finally was able to get back on it. And it was just, again, like, oh, I don't want to ride any other bike but this bike from now on. Like, I don't need to see any other bikes. I don't need to try any other bikes. Like, this is the bike that makes me absolutely the happiest and the most confident too on the trail. Because let's be real, a majority of mountain biking is feeling confident, right?
Yeah.
If you think you're going to be able to do something, you're probably not going to be able to do it. So having a bike that gives you that little extra oomph of confidence of like, I think I'm going to be able to do it on this bike because this bike fits me. I feel good on it. I know how to react on it. I know how it's going to react. It just really makes a difference.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people feel the same way, me included. I've been on bikes that it's like very expensive bikes, and I've been on other bikes that just perform better for me. I'm not a very tall guy. Like on a good day, I'm 5'7". Most days, I'm more like 5'5" and 3/4". So I could ride a small to a medium depending on the bike. So I ride a trail bike that's a Salsa Rustler. It is a small, but it behaves more like a medium.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely like most people would get on it and be like, this is a medium. But in their realm of things, they consider it a small. So when I went to a medium and another style bike, enduro bike, Salsa Cassidy, it was actually a little bit too big for me because it was a 29er. And I made it into a mullet because you can actually make that into a mullet. It's designed to be a mullet. So like I am a 27.5 fan as well. But I do say when we do ride bike parks and chunk, I like the mullet, 29 up front, but I'll never ride a full 29 front and rear. It has to be at least a mullet for me these days. Like once I switch it over to a mullet, I was like, oh, this is so much better.
Yeah, I've heard that, and I tried a mullet at Outer Bike as well, but again, I like my 227.5 wheels. But going back to what you said about being between like a small and a medium, I am 5'5" and 3/4, and one thing that I've started to learn is, medium for this bike isn't necessarily a medium for that bike, and same thing even within the same brand. And so starting to learn to look at geometry and look at your reach, and it's like, oh, okay. And that's why I'm gonna plug Outer Bike again, or Sedona Mountain Bike Fest.
Yeah, and we
This
were
is
talking
where
about
you
that
can
earlier
go
backstage.
and demo bikes is absolutely amazing, because not everyone understands that you can't just look at small, medium, large and what they're saying the height range is, because you're also
Yeah.
getting a lot of bikes that are doing overlaps too, where you can size up or you can size down. And some people, they want to size down. Some people want to size up. I tend to like to size up because I don't like being like feeling like I'm in a small cockpit. Like I want to be able to reach out. I feel like I'm going to go over the bars if I'm in a smaller cockpit.
Yeah.
But you don't know that until you're able to go and try different sizes. And again, a size medium here is not going to be the same as a medium there. And when you start going from trailer cross country to enduro and you're more slacked out, like geometry really comes into play. So if anyone ever has a chance, when they're in the market for a bike, find a demo event and go to it. They are worth every penny to be able to try the different bikes, because you might go into something thinking like, this is going to be the perfect bike for me. And then you get on it and you're like, oh, I don't really feel good on this. And then you try another bike that you may have never even thought of. Like I never thought of just They'd never crossed my mind as a bike to try. And then I get on the Jameis and I realize like this is the best bike ever. How is everyone not on a Jameis hardline? So I just really encourage people to try different bikes, brands that you wouldn't necessarily think to try before, because there are some that are not the love that they deserve.
Yeah. And I see Mia's in the chat trying to get us on some Revels. I know it's one of the bikes she rides, I believe, right?
Yeah, she's got some one too that I think she did some custom customizing on it to get all something, I think.
Yeah. And so how many bikes do you have currently?
I am down to 3, down from 5. So I finally had this year.
Do you still have this pink bike?
I still have the Pivot. I still have the pink Shadow Cat. I have my Jameis Hardline, and then I got a dirt jumper this year too. But that blue bike, that was my first full suspension. That was a Giant Lust. So it was the year before Liv split out from Giant. So that was Giant's women's bike, and then the next year Liv split out for their own names. That was my first full suspension. And then I also sold my very first mountain bike, which was a Specialized Mica. It was a hardtail, and it was like of the rock hopper. So very, very old bike. I think 2008. And
I seen earlier in your Instagram, you was on.
They went, I gotta make room in the garage.
Yeah. You was on a black bike that had some orange accent to it. I've seen some of your earlier Instagram posts. Which bike was that?
Sorry, what was it?
So you was on your earlier Instagram post. You was on a black bike that had some orange like accent like on the top.
Oh yeah. So that black bike in the earlier, that would have been the Hardline C1 that I demoed in Killington.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and I've seen mostly you're on the orange bike now, the orange Jameis.
Yep. So that's the C2 model. So the C1, they have the C is for carbon, so they have 4 different carbon builds. Like a lot of bikes, you have your different build specs, and their C1 is it has the Fox 38 in the front, and it has a coil in the rear. And then the C2, 3, and 4s are all the Fox 30 in the front and 160 in the back.
Okay.
No coil.
And you say you have a dirt jumper as well, you said?
Yeah. I picked up the Jameis Chromo earlier. I live just about 2 hours, 45 minutes from Ray's MTB in Cleveland. So the indoor bike park there. And, full suspension mountain bike is fun at Ray's, but I think I'm going to have more fun on jumper. So I got sucked into the dirt jumper life. So I'll be heading out to Ray's probably quite a bit this winter with the DJ to have a little more fun on it than
Yeah, and this is Ray's right here, this picture right here, right?
Yes, yeah, that's
And me being from Ohio, I'm surprised. Like I have not been to Ray's yet. Basically because it's like 3 hours from my hometown. But I plan to go there one day. There's another bike park there I used to go to when I was younger in the 90s. It's called Changa World. It was precursor to what Ray's is, but that's the first like indoor park I was ever at was at Changa World, which is like just down the street pretty much from Ray's.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I
Not
think.
familiar with that.
Yeah. So yeah, it's I believe they still do. So that park is both a skate park for skaters and it was mainly known for BMX back in the day. Although I seen like my first like dude on a mountain bike like 1999 on it. I thought he was crazy. And then like mountain bike kind of came what it is today, and all of a sudden you see slope style and all these tricks that guys brought over and the gals brought over from BMX. And when they kind of grew up and went from like their teens to 20s to late 20s, all of a sudden on mountain bikes they took the BMX tricks into the mountain bike world. And so right there, yeah, Changa World. Somebody Joel in the chats talking about Changa World. But it's
Oh, hey,
literally,
Joel.
yeah, it's literally only like, I don't know, probably less than 30 minutes away from like where Ray's is at, from what I believe.
I might have to try to check that out too then. Make it
Yeah,
a extra long trip.
and let me see if I can find. I had some pictures there once upon a time. Yeah, this is not it, but that's me there in my friend's barn. But I used to have some pictures from Changa World. Let me see if I can find one here. If not, no biggie. But yeah, that was always a fun place, especially because right now you guys are becoming into winter and not too distant future, so you're kind of reduced to like going down to Rays. And because imagine in January, unless you get like a hard freeze and where it's not like super snowy, it's like for us, like, so from October 21st to like May 21st, it's like our prime riding area time out here in Arizona, Southern Arizona. So we just came into our prime like riding time. So right now is like almost perfect weather for us to be riding, and we'll ride all the way up until about the 1st of June, and then it'll get 115 degrees out here, and it gets a little too warm for for a lot of us that are kind of up there in age. I'm in my 50s now, so I don't do well with the heat when we're fine with 95 out here because not much humidity. So most of us 90-95 is perfectly fine out here. Most people never get to experience 110, 115, 120 degree weather. I know humidity is a thing, and so yeah, riding in other places. I know Johnny out there in Miami, they probably don't ride in 90-degree weather because of humidity. We can do it out here. Most people don't ever get to experience 120 degrees. They just don't. So I say, put a hair dryer on you, and that's what it feels like. Try to ride in that.
Like riding a bike in a dry sauna.
Yeah. So like I said, we're good with 90-95. But once it gets to 105, 110, and then we'll have like certain areas out here in the desert be 120 plus, because we're kind of in a Death Valley like area. So if you look at like our area, Yuma is probably the number 1, number 2 warmest area in the nation. Death Valley is right there. Phoenix is right there. Tucson, fortunately for us, we are about 10 degrees cooler than Phoenix area, anywhere from 5 to 10 degrees. So we do get a little bit cooler weather out here, but there's just parts of the desert, man, where it's 120 degrees when, the temperature might say officially it's 110. You can take the ground temperature out here in a lot of parts of the desert and it'll be close to 120. And that's just not. Like most people like have felt 95, even 105. Most people have never felt 125 like in their life.
Yeah, we don't get that. We get the humidity though, where it's like breathing soup. in the
Yeah.
summer. Like you're
No, I
pedaling
totally
and
get.
just like dripping sweat, and then it's the wet sauna. It's like riding in
Yeah,
a wet sauna.
I totally get it because,
isn't
like,
isn't the greatest.
yeah, riding in that in the 85 degrees, you think, oh, because like for us, 85 degrees is perfect out here. But some places where 85, 100% humidity, it's just stifling.
And mosquitoes.
Yeah, and
And then we
that's
get
the
the
other thing we don't
mosquitoes
really
too.
have. We
So it's
don't
like
really
you're
have the.
you're stopping to try to breathe and hydrate, and then you're getting swarmed by mosquitoes, and it's like
We don't really have a
you
lot of
gotta
mosquitoes
keep
out here
them.
either because there's no water out here. So, but it's every environment has its challenges. Like for us, we don't have the mosquitoes, but you got to avoid rattlesnakes everywhere. You got to avoid Gila monsters.
But it's 120 degrees. Yeah.
Yeah,
So.
and the worst of all, we have these plants called cholla that try to kill you. Like the cholla plant is the most evil plant on the planet. I kid you not. One of these days, I'm going to make a video about that particular plant because it is an evil, 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 evil plant that needs to be eradicated. But there's like trillions of them out here. Like it's you see any drone footage like of my YouTube videos, you'll see like just trillions of cholla bushes out here, and each one of them, the bulbs on them probably have, I don't know, there's at least 50 spines, like razor sharp spines per bulb, and there's hundreds of bulbs per. Yeah, yeah. So yeah.
No, I
One of
don't
these
like
days,
that.
yeah. So we tell people like that that's not from here. And one of the best things you could ever do besides carry a lot of water out here is carry tweezers, because
Right.
you're inevitably, because the only way you're going to get it out is tweezers. That's the only way. You have to have like really like fine tweezers to get them out. You can use a comb to kind of get them off your body, but if a bulb gets in you, you're probably going to get 5 or 6, 7 spines in you, and they actually kind of act as a toxin too. So you got to get those spines out of you. So once they go into you, they kind of hook into your skin as well. So it goes in and then it hooks. So when you pull it out, the hook remains into you. And the only way
No,
to
the
get them
way I
out.
ride, I would be covered in them. No, thank you. Pass.
Yeah, yeah. So we teach young riders to ride very, very under control out here, because like, if you don't, like all the single track trails, the cholla balls might be like a couple inches from you. Like if you go around a corner, like it's literally, if you lean just 2 inches to the left or right, you might shoulder check a cholla bulb. And they just fall on the trail too, because that's how they reproduce. So what happens is people, if they're not paying attention, they'll, especially like if you're riding somebody in front of you, they might actually kick a bulb like up on their back tire, and it might like get in your face or on your body somewhere. And yeah, or the worst part is, the absolute worst is,
It gets worse.
yeah, so this is the worst. This is the absolute worst. So you're riding, you kick up a cholla bulb on your rear tire. You don't know that you just kicked it up. It has now landed on your back, your seat, your saddle, stuck to your saddle, because these things are razor sharp. Now you sit on it. Yeah.
I don't want to ride where you are. I'll take like ticks and mosquitoes over that.
Yeah, one of these days I plan, and I've started to do a video once, and I just didn't complete it. But one of these days I'm going to make a video just on the different types of, like, and that'll be one of them. The cholla plant will be kind of the one of the main focus of, because there's other, like the saguaro cactus, with the arms. It's very famous out here. Those have needles that are about 3 inches long. So if you smack into one of those, not good either. Yeah, and there's like different species of cholla as well. There's all kind of things that, like, every plant out here wants to like poke you. Even the trees like have razor sharp thorns. Like it's just the nature of the beast out here. Same thing like with any other riding in other places where you're dealing with ticks or you're dealing with mosquitoes. We don't have that, but we have our own challenges as well.
Yeah, I don't like your challenges.
Well,
they sound awful.
Well, and then the other challenge we have is, of course, we ride in what we call kitty litter, which I'm sure you heard of. And I know you've ridden out west some in that sand, that loose sand.
Don't like it.
Yeah.
Your
So
version of sand is not what we call sand out here in the West. Let me spoiler alert. Our sand is like nice and soft. Your sand is like broken teeth.
Yeah, jagged rocks inside this, within the sand.
Moon dust sounds better than sand, because I'm like, oh, everyone's like, oh, it's really sandy, it's really loose, and I'm like, this is not sand, you guys. Like, our sand is like beach sand. Like, go ahead, like dive into it, take a digger, you're fine. Not your guys. That's not.
Yeah, and in the West, so we do have a lot of chunky rocks that if you fall in the sand, you're also falling in the chunky rocks. I will say the one place I really liked was out there at Snow Valley Bike Park out there in California. They have a lot of sand out there, but it's a little bit more of what I would call more the beach sand. So that's a little more forgiving.
Can you see that?
Okay. So wait. So
there we go.
So you got to forgive me.
That's from sand.
So you got to forgive me for this picture.
That was from sand too.
Yeah, that was from sand.
That was Moab, Utah.
Okay, yeah. So there's a lot
of the Enchilada Trail. It was like the Cocopelli down section that takes like a Jeep road, and we're just like hauling section of Jeep road, and I'm like, I should probably like slow down. I don't really know what's coming ahead. And anyone who's ridden in Moab knows that it's really sandy out there too, and sand gets blown around. And this was a Jeep road, and there were tire ruts that got filled in with sand. And my dumb self rode at like 30 miles an hour through a tire rut filled with sand, and that sand just grabbed my tires and just pulled, and I just flipped over onto the side, handlebars to my side, bike still underneath me, like I'm straddling the bike, and I like Superman slide down the Jeep road. And then when it came to a stop, my chin slammed down to the ground, and I broke my teeth.
Oh no.
And like all of that, like I was wearing long sleeved, I was wearing gloves, like obviously not a crop top yet. That hip certainly looks like I was wearing a crop top. But amazingly, my shirt hairs, no rips, no nothing, like gloves were fully intact. That was all just like road rash under the clothes, aside from the chin that was just a smack really hard.
This is where full face helmets come in good play.
Yeah. And we're in a half shell, and I remember like I came to a stop, and I'm just kind of like laying there still on my bike, and like I start like feeling the grit in my teeth, in my mouth, and I'm like, oh, just please be stand, and then I'm like, oh no, it's broken teeth. And the worst part for this one was I had to keep riding. We had gotten dropped off at the top of like, at least 15 miles to go. This was in like the first mile, and there was no cell phone service.
Well, of course.
So there was no option of like, okay, like let's call and like hike back up. But it was like, we have to keep going. And it was really cold. It started out really cold that day, even though it was, I think, in May. So it was like actually snowing, and I'm just in long sleeves and like shorts. So it was this combination of this shock of the trauma, but then also like it's cold and I'm freezing. But it was just kind of like, okay, let's assess, like it's all just surface moves. It's just cuts and scrapes. I was there with my dad and a friend, and they were ahead of me, so they didn't even know that I fell. So after like a minute or so, like I got up, started checking myself. I'm like, all right, well, like you're gonna have to get up and keep going. Yeah. But they actually figured out that I wasn't behind them anymore, and like came hauling back up this Jeep road, which they had to climb up. And it was funny because they're helping me look over, and like I got my little med kit and start putting bandages on, and they look at each other and they're like, how's your chin? And I'm like, it's fine. Why? And then they both like look at each other and then they look at me and they're like, no reason.
No
No
reason.
idea. Goose egg that might come. So they thought it best not to point out that my chin was 3 sizes too big.
Yeah.
But yeah, just was fine. Actually, when I went and turned the bike, it was a rental bike. They took one look at me, and I tell you, they took like a magnifying glass on that rental bike. And I'm like, the bike's
Oh, yeah.
fine, all right? This is me. I broke myself, not the bike. But they were definitely more concerned that I messed up their bike than me.
Oh, man. And that's, that's the issue that a lot of us mountain bikers have to deal with. Like if, a lot of one of the mountains we ride out here is Mount Lemon. And for the most part, there's no cell phone service on this mountain. So if you have a wreck, you have a crash, you're either going to, if you're able, you're going to have to ride out how many miles to get down, because there's really no fire roads that we can bail out on. It's like you pretty much have to go down the trail. Otherwise you're going back up the mountain, which you don't really want to do.
Yeah.
And there's not really a lot of bailouts. So like you're kind of stuck like going down to the next trailhead. And
Yeah.
that's why I get along with mountain bikers so well. And I think it's one of the reasons a lot of us get along is because the mountain bikers, we have a very much a sense of like strong fortitude to get through stuff like that. And which I appreciate somebody that has that type of personality that like, hey, you got a little messed up. You got hurt a little bit, but if you can find that mental fortitude, physical fortitude to get down the mountain and not complain too much about it, that's somebody that I get along with.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny you say like, yeah, no cell phone service. So you're either going back up or you're going down. My very first time mountain biking, I was living in Montana, and this company that I was working with, basically it was a job with grads for grad school. And they're like, all right, if you're gonna be in Montana, you got to be a mountain biker. And so
Like, what?
that's where I got my first hardtail. They took me out after work one day, and I had no idea what mountain biking was. I'd only ever like ridden a Huffy before, and never even on a trail. And to start, so me being in Michigan, our trails are like loop trails, right? There's a little bit of elevation. It's climb down, climb down. Not like out west where like you're climbing.
Mm-hmm.
We're climbing for over an hour, and I'm just like, what the heck, you guys? Like you didn't tell me that like this was exercise.
Yeah, you said it
So it was hard
mountain
enough.
biking, not mountain climbing.
Yeah, it was rough. And so we finally get to the top, and they give me just like really brief. They're like, okay, like here's your brakes. Like I think they were telling me to do like the 2 and 1 finger on the brake instead of like 1 and 1. And they really didn't give me any advice whatsoever. And they're like, yeah, just follow us. And I'm like, okay. And so they start going down and they're bombing down. So I'm like, okay. I start bombing down with them, and sure enough, the trail, of course, has a turn, and I'm going way faster than I should. And I realized, oh boy, I really need to slow down. And my first time going down, right? So my first time really using brakes. And yeah, I locked it up, went ODB.
Probably the front brake. Yeah, front brake.
Like, yeah, I think I locked up both brakes, but it was probably front brake too. But I immediately like, I had no idea how to brake. I just pulled the brakes and I went OTB into a bush. I landed on my elbow on my left arm, and I couldn't fist when I got up.
Oh.
So I couldn't hold on to the handlebar. Oh. So we had to walk down. So basically, like my boss went ahead to riding down to like go get the truck. One of my coworkers basically had to carry my bike, and I had to walk down like holding my arm on this single track that I find out later is a black diamond. And they
which
told
I
me, they're like, you know,
don't.
we really had no business taking you out on that trail. I don't
Yeah,
know what we were
that's just
thinking.
not cool, man.
I don't remember
I
how many
don't.
miles it was, but it was a long walk down. And it was like 3 or 4 days before I could like make a fist again.
Yeah.
Um, but yet
What?
I was like, okay, let's go try it again
Why
after I
would you
got my
take a
hands
beginner on a
back.
Black Diamond Trail? Which I applaud your mental fortitude, because like a lot of people would just be like, "No, that's it. No more mountain biking for
Yeah,
me."
like now we're done. You guys are trying to kill me.
Yeah, I just
But
don't
no,
understand
I
how people
managed. I
what.
went back out again at a much easier trail with another
Yeah.
coworker who really like spent the time to explain the bike to me and explain
Mhm.
braking and take me down a gentle hill
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
instead of some steep loose stuff and yeah, it was after that it was like, okay, I like this. This is good.
Yeah. So out here we have a group called Old Pueblo MTB. Um, Old Pueblo is a nickname for the city of Tucson. Uh, so they have all these group rides, and one of the group rides they have is called Rookie Roundup. And so basically, we take beginner riders and we take them to the most easy trail. One of them out here is called the Bunny Trail over Vortex. The easiest trails we have out here, right? So that's where even these, particularly after the lockdowns, we had 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds getting into mountain biking for the first time. And so we'll have anywhere from like 5-year-olds to 50-year-olds that are brand new into mountain biking. And we
Hmm.
take them on the beginner trails and say, hey, this is where you should start. And then, you progress from there, then,
Yeah.
as because there's the group is so big, they have rides every weekend, group rides every weekend. So you progress after a while. Next thing you know, you're on a blue trail. Next thing you
Hmm.
know, you're on Black Diamond trails. The next thing you know, you're up on Mount Lemon doing very technical Black Diamond and double Black Diamond trails. But you know, this takes a while. Like most people don't go from a green trail to a double Black Diamond trail in like a week. You know what I mean? Like most people get injured like that, and they tap out and be like, no, this is not for me. So we try our best to like, hey, you know start small, go a little bit bigger, go a little bit bigger, go a little bit bigger. But there's a really cool group
Yeah.
out here that does that, to where they have the very beginner Ricky Roundup rides all the way up to like what they call optimum octane. And so these individuals are really good riders, expert riders, to where doing long rides and then doing very technical double Black Diamond trails or Black Diamond trails up on Mount Lemon, which is kind of the most technical stuff we have out here. But to take you on a Black Diamond trail, that's right, man, that's crazy.
I know. I don't know what they were thinking. And we had a really physically demanding job too, that
Mhm.
involved hiking at least 5 miles each day. And for
Yeah.
for each of us, we had to take turns doing geophysical surveying, and we were wearing this magnetometer array that weighs like 50 pounds. And
Hmm.
so, of those, 15 miles, we're splitting it up between the three of us of wearing, this 50-pound array. So I'm already tired of work, and then this massive climb, and
Oh,
then
geez.
this downhill. And this was back in 2002, so we don't have dropper seats or
Yeah.
anything like that. It was like, okay, you're at the top now, put your seat down. And I'm like, okay. And here's your brakes. And I think they did say like try not to like lock up your front brake.
Yeah. Yeah.
But again, like I had just gotten the bike, hadn't
Hmm.
even really needed to use the brakes at all because we were climbing the fire road up the hill. So I never even got a chance to even like try braking. And it was just suddenly like downhill and shoom, off we go.
Well,
So
I
yeah,
I I
having
applaud you
what
for
you
getting
have
back
is
on the
good.
bike and getting to where you're at today. Because seeing your videos, you're a pretty good jumper. You're a pretty good rider, really good rider actually. So
Oh,
I applaud
thanks.
you for getting back on the bike, because I know I've seen people to where they get that injured and like, no, that's it. This is not my sport. And speaking of other, let me see if I can find it real quick right here. Do you snowboard as well?
I do. I do. I actually, so I went to undergrad at Lake Superior State University in Sault Ste. Marie, and
Mhm.
believe it or not, my college had an intro to snowboarding class.
Oh
And
wow,
it's like, ah,
awesome,
please.
awesome.
Yeah, so I started snowboarding up there and then moved to Montana for grad school. And so all of a sudden it was like, whoa, real mountains.
Yeah,
And got to do a lot more snowboarding out there and just a lot of fun. And again, like with mountain biking, I didn't start doing like drops and jumps till about like maybe 2 years ago. I was kind of just content to ride within my skill level for a number of years, but it was kind of the same with mountain biking the first couple of years, just riding down the hill, the mountain, and then I started going like, all right, let's try some park. let's
yeah,
let's try some rail slides. Let's try some board slides. Let's try a little bit of jumps. And the nice thing about snowboarding is like when you fall, it's already nice and cold. So you're already getting ice on your elbow.
yeah. So
Not really
I
getting
know.
road rash unless like, the face and the ice a couple
Oh
times.
yeah.
And how wild was it just like, obviously mountain biking, we all wear helmets, right? I
Mhm.
feel like snowboarding took a while for people. Like, I didn't really wear helmets my first like 2 years of snowboarding, and
Yeah.
most
So
people didn't either. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, why are we not protecting our noggins?
yeah. So what year did you get into snowboarding?
I got in 2007, I think. So like a year
Oh,
before
okay.
I started biking is when I did snowboarding. Started
Okay.
snowboarding.
Yeah, I don't. So I know, like, I was talking to one of the other uh, guys that frequent the podcast, and they said that when they first got into snowboarding, this was probably back in the 90s, maybe even 80s, 90s, that, snowboarders were kind of outcast. And I wonder, like, when, because I've never been around the snowboarding scene at all. I wonder when, like, the whole uh, safety gear kit came along in that genre. Because same thing when mountain biking started out there in California, like they wasn't wearing helmets or nothing either. They were going down those mountains and uh, and with no padding on, no helmets on, no nothing. And then later on, you did see probably somebody that hit their noggin once upon a time, like, well, maybe I'll put on
Yeah, like,
a
this might be a good idea to protect this. Yeah, yeah, it's wild, but I do remember like my first 2 seasons, like not wearing a helmet, and I've got all the photos, and like none of my friends are wearing helmets either, and but yeah, no, always helmets now, and I always wear helmets mountain biking, and thank goodness that the coworkers at least had the wherewithal to tell me make sure you get a helmet.
yeah.
But yeah, dude, crash is so important. I'm actually really not the best at wearing protective gear. I'm really good like if I'm riding a lift. If it's a lift, I'm like, all right, I'm going full face. I'm wearing knee pads. Probably need to wear my elbow pads more often. Let's be real. But at
So
least full face and knee pads. But I learned very
I
quickly
am
at Snow
horrible
Valley that
about
elbow pads
wearing.
were
Yeah, I don't wear
necessary.
I don't wear elbow pads. I generally always wear a long sleeve shirt because everything pokes you out here, and of course the
Mhm.
sun is always bright and sunshiny out here usually. So to save the skin, I wear long sleeves. But I have a problem with the elbow pads always sliding down. It drives me crazy. Um, but I will generally wear shin guards, knee pads. I'm just not. I just can't do the elbow pads too much.
I don't know. It seems to be a kind of a mountain biker thing. Like nobody wants to wear elbow pads. Yet I'm the one that tends to need that padding the most is the elbow pads. But uh, you know, someone please make a comfortable elbow pad that like stays up and doesn't slide down.
Yeah.
Just riding last month, I think I have some video, I haven't posted it yet, where I'm like, my elbow pads have become bracelets again. Like
Yeah.
they just slide right down.
Yeah. And I can't, yeah, it annoys me to no end. I'm like, just nope. But I will at park when I'm riding the lift. A lot of times, if I know I'm going to be a little more reckless than usual, I will wear a chest protector sometimes as well. If I'm just like, I know I'm pretty like, okay, I'm going to be pretty casual. But if I'm working on something or I know I'm going to be going down some big chunky stuff, which we have a lot out here in the West, uh, sometimes, and I have, that chest protector has saved me quite a bit. The problem is on the longer rides, like not at park where you don't have a lift, like it's hard to wear the chest protector just because like you usually have to wear some type of hydration pack because you shouldn't really ride too far out here without water
Yeah.
just because it is so dry out here. Like even a 5 mile ride, 10 mile ride could get kind of dangerous without water out here. So almost every ride that's not at a park is going to be with a hydration pack with at least a liter, if not 2 or 3 liters of water, depending. And, like I said, if I'm on Mount Lemon, like I'm generally bringing like at least a liter to 2 liters of water because there's no bailout point. And then what we find too, especially this time of year, we have 50 degree temperature change out here this time of year. So a lot of people will go out in the morning, say at 7 in the morning, it'll be 60 degrees in the morning. And then all of a sudden it's in a couple hours later, it is in the 90s.
Mhm.
So many people that is not from here, out of state, or from say northern Arizona that is out visiting. In my time out here, I've ran into so many people that's run out of water because they bring in just like one little bottle of water thinking that, and then by the time it's 90 degrees, because when they left in the morning,
Yeah.
it was 60, 70 degrees. They're like, oh, it's fine. Like I'm on a 10 mile ride. I don't, next thing you know, it's 95 degrees out here. And I see them on the side of the trail. So a lot of us will bring, actually, I have a plastic bottle that breaks down. And it's like,
Yeah.
hey, probably 10 times or more I've had to, give them some of my water just to get them out of the trail. That's just kind of the nature of what I've done in my law enforcement career. I've done a lot of search and rescue type things over my 20-year career. So like, that's just, I'm one of the few riders probably that carries a tourniquet in his kit. Like,
Mhm.
that seems kind of extreme. It's all good until you need it.
Yeah.
And, especially with a lot of carbon components, those can snap and they can, if you get some type of artery that it gets nicked. Fortunately, I haven't had to do that in my mountain biking, you know, recreation time, but I've had to do it a lot in my professional career to where tourniquet save lives. And I just happened to carry one because of just the job I've done over the years. And I just feel comfortable with that. And that, not only that, like I have it with me as well. A lot of times I'll driving to and from mountain bike trails, we'll run into vehicle accidents. And I know I have
Yeah.
it because we carry it even in our personal vehicles as well. But I know I actually have an extra one when I have my mountain biking kit as well, because, and, a lot of times since I have quite a bit of experience stopping at these, rollover accidents and whatnot. One of the last ones I went to was actually a motorcycle accident to where, you know, um, kind of not the best scene in the world, but I didn't really need the tourniquet for that. But, that's one of the ones where I was like, well, I'm probably the only one around here that has a couple tourniquets on me. And,
Yeah.
this individual, he got smacked and he's on the side of the road now on a motorcycle. And so, we stopped to help. And did the best we could until the ambulance got there. But, I was thinking like, this, and the worst case scenario, you would need a tourniquet. And I just carry one. It's just in my kit. I just know it's always there.
Yeah.
Hopefully I don't have to have it on the trail, but I have my little med kit and I have that just in case, because you just never know like what's going to happen. You just never know.
Well, and then you can also have the mentality of like, it's that I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. But like, if you bring an umbrella, it's not going to rain.
Yeah, and I have the same mentality.
It's like, well, you're not.
If I bring the tourniquet, hopefully I never need it.
Yep. So that's I like to use that kind of mindset too of things. It's like if I bring it, it means we're gonna be okay. We won't need it. But you have a tourniquet. I've bought the like things for splints too, and I've popped those small little ones that they fold up, and then you can unfold them, and you can splint your arm or your shin if need be. I put those in my pack before.
And I always have like
hopefully don't need it.
Exactly the sanitized gauze, prepackaged, so something happens. A lot of time, you'll find some, and there was one that, now that I think of it, there was a guy that I was riding with a couple years ago, and he had such a horrible crash. It looked like a car crash, like the speed it was going. We actually had to take him to the hospital, and fortunately, as content creators, we actually had it on video, so we got to show the doctors at the hospital, like, because they were like, "Oh, this is a mountain bike crash." We showed them the video, and like, this is not a mountain bike crash. This is a car crash. Like, the injuries he sustained was like completely knocked out. Pretty much had to almost get an airway started type situation. Yeah. So I was lucky to have my med kit with me because he was bleeding quite a bit. Got some of that bleeding under control, which wasn't massive bleeding, but it was enough to like, hey, if it gets any worse, it could go into maybe a shock type situation. But to have that on video as well, to show the nurses and doctors at the hospital to know exactly what they were dealing with. But when I showed them the video, they were just like, holy cow, like we would have never thought, because he just hit a jump and then just ran into a bunch of like rocks after that and pretty much knocked himself out. And they're like, oh no, this is not what they would think would be a bike accident. This is more like a severe car crash, like getting ejected from a car type situation. So they knew exactly what they were doing. He had a bunch of broken bones, but we was lucky to have the video because they, once we knew he was okay, they were all like, "Oh, you got to see this. You got to see." So all the nurses and doctors like, "Oh, you got to see this. You got to see this. Like, this is what we're dealing with." It's like, man, you guys are crazy. It's like, maybe a little bit.
Yeah, like what would you think with a bike accident, right?
Because they were all thinking like, how is this a bike accident? How does, I could kind of see them like, okay, this is a bike accident. And they wasn't really. It's not that they were taking it serious, but I didn't think they knew how severe it really was until I showed them the video, and they're like,
yeah. Suddenly it's like, ooh, maybe we need to be looking at like internal bleeding too.
Yeah,
they don't.
Exactly. All of a sudden they went from, okay, this is probably a intensive care type situation to where we got to look at this guy really, really, really carefully, because like what he's just sustained, like some people don't make it back from that, type of thing. And like I said, as content creators, there was 2 or 3 of us filming, so we had a couple of different like angles of it, and when we showed them, they're just like, whoa. Yeah.
I had not as extreme, but as like kind of an example of how some people don't really understand what it means to fall mountain biking. I was seeing my doctor, my surgeon. I had a work injury, and I needed surgery on my right shoulder. a few years ago, and I've been
Mhm.
having issues with my left shoulder after I hit a tree.
You and the
So
tree.
I decided to finally go check it out, and I was explaining the problem and the issue that I had, getting my arm above my head, and I was like, I've fallen a couple times mountain biking, and he's just like, oh, it's probably like bursitis, like there's probably really nothing you can do about it. I'm like, well, I mean, I hit a tree
Mhm.
when I was mountain biking. He's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, let's order you high because now you have trauma to it. I'm like, I mean, I just like a couple minutes
Like,
before that, I mountain bike and I've had some
yeah.
accidents, but like when you say that to someone who doesn't mountain bike, they probably don't really think much of a fall, right? And they're
Yeah,
like,
it's
well,
like, oh,
I hit a
you
couple
fell on your
trees.
bike, you just kinda tipped over, that's all it
Yeah, like,
was,
oh, it's fine. He's like, you're 40, it's just getting old. And I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
well, I
Especially if
don't
you
think
got the
it's the
video,
whole
like,
thing.
so much of our video, like, so many of our crashes are on video, as content creators, like, it's like, "Oh, here it is." And,
Yeah, and then like,
also
oh yeah, let me let me order that MRI for you.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then yeah, sure enough, I had another torn labrum. But the good news is he's like, I don't think we should do surgery on this one. I was like, thank
Mhm.
you.
Mhm.
Because I'll tell you what, everybody, protect your shoulders because shoulder surgery is
So
I don't
my
recommend
wife just
it.
had shoulder surgery a couple days ago. Nothing to do
Who's
with
that?
mountain bike. My wife just had shoulder surgery a couple days ago. She's like in a sling and everything right now. Yeah, so just on the 5th, she had it. And actually, of all things, it was actually
Oh gosh.
that part of it wasn't, but another part of it on her hand was a work injury. So that's the other thing. As I'm always really careful about posting like specific things about like my mountain biking injuries because in the job, like I get hurt on the job a lot. And so I don't want them to ever come back and say, well, you got hurt mountain biking, not on the job. So I'm like, so if I do get hurt, like I don't really, because like you can run into this like situation to where they'll be like, hey, you got hurt mountain biking. But usually when you get hurt at work, like you go to somebody immediately, you go through your chain of command and be like, hey, I got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
You fill out the paperwork and all that. But like, I just tend not to post very specific things about my injuries. I just don't want anybody to come back because like sometimes like they could whoever the powers that be might be like, yeah, was that really that or was it because of the mountain biking
Mm-hmm.
thing? You know
Pre-existing
what I mean?
condition, mount, but yes, and
Yeah,
like because workers' comp, like let's be real, it's designed to frustrate you and get you to use your private insurance. And so,
mhm.
yeah, if they can find a
Yeah, and you're
pinpoint your
always gonna
worker's injury and say it's from something else, they'll do it.
yeah, and fortunately for me, my wife has worked in the workman's comp area for several years. She's moved on to bigger and better things, but because of her, she helps me navigate all through that because she pretty much was the person in Arizona for our agency. Everything went like through her desk at one point, but she moved on to a different uh, avenue of like what she does. But like I'm able to navigate that whole workman's comp thing better than most, just because like she dealt with it professionally for so many years. So I'm very, very
Yeah.
fortunate
Yeah.
when it comes to that. If I get injured at work, I'm just be like,
Yeah.
okay,
And
here you go.
it's sad because, a lot of us that are injured, we're just trying to get, the medical coverage to get fixed. And then they treat everyone like you're trying to defraud them. So it's a
Yeah,
frustrating system.
and unfortunately, it's a small percentage, but there's enough of it where it is a problem. Even my wife has dealt with
Bad
that.
out, bad
Yeah,
out. Yeah.
it's a small percentage, but like I get it, but it is very, very frustrating. Sometimes it's very frustrating. Hey, we're at an hour and 20 minutes. I don't want to keep you too much longer as I know it's already past 10 o'clock on your time. Um, so we'll go just for a little bit longer, but before we head out, so anything that you want to talk about, we want to get to your your social media, your MTBSHEENQUEEN IG, and I know you really don't do much on YouTube, at least not right now.
I need to.
Yeah, you got like maybe one post on YouTube, and that's just it's like, hey, I exist in the in the world.
Yeah, like I'm here. Maybe someday.
Yeah, which is funny because like I don't do much on Instagram. I do most of my stuff on YouTube. That seems the kind of the thing. Like, it's difficult to manage it all. Like whether it be doing YouTube, Instagram, or any other social media apps like that. Like, it's just too much when
Yeah,
when
it's time consuming. We have full-time jobs, right? Like
mhm,
my job funds my biking, not
same.
the
Yeah,
other way around, right? Like
yeah,
biking doesn't fund my life. I work to fund biking. So finding
mm,
that time to, work full time and then ride and have fun full time, well, part time. And
yeah,
yeah, how much time do you want to spend editing, right? So
exactly. So for like
you
me, and I
gotta
know
find
this
the balance.
exactly, and I know for me, like between the work and driving and back and forth and all that, like I'm looking at like 65 hours or so a week of what I work and what things that are dedicated to work that you don't technically get paid for. And you're talking about like for me about 65 hours a week. So like I
Hmm.
only have so much time, you know what I mean? Like now I will say for me at least, uh I can retire technically from my job and walk off into the sunset. But the thing is, like, you lose about 2/3 of your pay. So,
Yeah.
I, I get paid okay, enough to fund this mountain biking and have all the kind of um, mountain biking toys and camera equipment and this podcast studio. I get, but without that, if I would just go into retirement, I would have to budget a lot more, I will say. And yeah, Joel's asking, work? What is work?
There is a incentive to delay retirement on the money side too, but then
Yeah.
it's also like, yeah, but free time.
And so I do that balance in between, like, okay, I could literally tomorrow go in and have all the free time I want, right? Um, you would just have to live on way more of a budget. And there's certain things that, I want, I want to save up for a truck or, I know we have nice vehicles and everything, but, um, and just kind of pad the retirement and to where you can still live
Hmm.
comfortably. Um, and I would live pretty comfortably in retirement compared to most, to be honest. But like when you're talking about, oh, I want to get an e-bike, all of a sudden, like, oh, there's $5,000, like it's like, okay, well, that you got to figure in stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, well, I can afford that
Yep.
if I'm working, doing my job that I currently do. But if I go
Hmm.
into retirement, it's more like because a lot of people go into retirement and they get these like part-time jobs, and I don't really want to do that. I would rather just like work very minimally. People go into retirement and they
Still
still
on those bike trips.
yeah. So like, that's the catch 22. I would have all the time in the world to do these bike trips, but could I afford it? And that's the problem, like, okay, well, yes, I can afford it now, but like, I only have so much time. I got like maybe 2 or 3 weeks out of the year, I can do a bike trip somewhere, like maybe 2 or 3
Hmm.
bike trips a year to say whether it be out to California or even here in Arizona to our one lift access bike park here. I might get to once or twice a year out here. I didn't even get to it this year because I did some other stuff. But anyways, so I'm kind of constantly going between this, okay, free time versus having the finances to do, all this other like stuff I like to do because mountain biking is an expensive hobby, for the most part,
It
really
really
is.
is.
Yeah. So we work a lot and work hard to fund the mountain biking genre of the world Because, next thing you know, like you can start out with, say, an $800 bike, but next thing you know, like you're bombing down this gnarly mountain and you're like, well, it'd be a little bit better if I had a full suspension enduro bike, that, minimum cost $3,000. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and that's the other thing too. Like the mountain biking prices, although they're better than they used to be for sure, it just seems so overpriced to me. I don't quite understand.
It is wild, absolutely wild, the cost of mountain bikes. But yeah, like you said, it was like 2014. I did a trip out to Moab, Utah. I had my hardtail Specialized that I think was like maybe a $600 mountain bike. But again, like this was 2008, so $600. I was like, that was a lot of money.
Mhm.
Had that out there, rode it around. It was like miserable on it.
Yeah.
Then demoed a full suspension or rented one to do the trail that I crashed on, part of the whole, not the whole enchilada, but like Porcupine Rim. And immediately I got home and bought that giant
Mhm.
full
Yeah.
suspension. And it was like $2,300. So like super expensive, right? 2014. But it was just like you said, you start out on like an entry level bike and you think like, okay, this is fine. And then you get on a better bike and it's like, I will never get on a hardtail
Yeah.
again.
So there's so many people that will say, like,
and then from there too, you get something even better components, right? And
Mhm.
it gets pricey.
That's why I don't really necessarily like the argument or the idea of like, oh, let's start on a hardtail. If you're really into mountain biking, like a lot of people get to, like, I'm more the advocate of like at least get on a affordable trail bike. To me, that seems more logical. Maybe to spend the extra few bucks to get on, because like if you really truly enjoy riding, your hardtail all of a sudden turns into a full suspension entry level trail bike generally. So I don't really get the argument. I don't necessarily buy into the argument. Well, I'll start with just now affordability. That's one thing. Like, hey, you're talking about, entry level full suspension might run you $2,000, or like maybe a used one you get maybe for $1,500. But some people are like, hey, all I got is $600-700. Hardtail.
Yep.
But if you can do it, $1,500 if you can get an entry level full suspension, that's the way I would do it, at least out here. Just because we do have some chunk out here. Now, every terrain is different, but for at least out here, I would say, like, if mountain biking is your thing, you like it, somehow you got to go on a trip somewhere, you got to borrow a bike, you think you're going to love it. I would say for at least out here, try to get a full suspension entry level for out here, because like if you think you really, really like the sport, the hardtail is fine, but like 90% of the time, people are going to end up on at least a trail bike out here. At least
we build our bodies up enough. Like, come on, let's get the
full. I'm also coming from a guy that's in his 50s. I'm not 20 anymore. So like, yeah, maybe for a 22-year-old, hardtail was fine. But yeah, if you're like in your 30s, 40s, 50s, like, man, just get the full suspension.
Get the full suspension and spring for the dropper post. Oh my gosh. I cannot.
People that don't have a dropper post these days.
Without a dropper post.
Yeah, it's almost like having a pager versus a modern day smartphone. You know what I mean? Like, what are you doing? Like, and I get it, like, because you do like some of the prices of like what some of the dropper posts cost, but man, like, there's one of the best inventions in the biking world has definitely been the dropper post for sure.
Yeah, I think I didn't get a dropper post until like 2015 or 16. About how often I use my dropper now, and I go, I don't know how I managed to ride my bike without a dropper, like having to like
Even
stop all the time you would come to a downhill and physically drop it. Like, no.
Yeah, like even on the easiest green trail, you're still using the dropper post. At least I am.
All the time. am like, but my seat is up, down, up, down, up, down, up,
Yeah.
down. Like that is the most used thing on my bike is the dropper post.
Yeah.
Spring for the dropper post, everybody. If you're just getting
Yeah.
into mountain biking, I don't know how they aren't standard on all bikes.
Yeah. These days, like, how do you even sell a modern day mountain bike without a
Yeah.
without a dropper?
Yeah. I had a friend a couple of years ago. She was still on she was still on a fixed seat post. And like I think the
Still
worst
have the
she had
quick
asked
release?
her boyfriend like if she should get a dropper. He's like, no, you're fine. You don't need one. Yet he had a dropper post, right?
Oh
Like
yeah.
he had one and was telling her she didn't need one. And I'm like, girl, get a dropper post.
Did she at least have like the quick release?
She did at least have a quick release, so she didn't have to stop and get a tool out. But we went to a lift service bike park too, and so like we were at the top, and she's like, "Oh, my seat's still up," and I'm like, "You don't have a dropper post? It's 2022. What is going on?"
Which is funny because I didn't get on a modern mountain bike that had droppers until 2019 is when I kind of got introduced to that. Up until then, I know Mark's telling me that we lost the video. Apparently we still have the audio, but my video completely died for some reason. Don't know why. Which is fine. You're the cute one, so.
Hey.
But so I will ask you a couple questions. Okay. Do you have any plans for your social media, your Instagram account, anything that you want to do in this next year to kind of either build it up, or any ideas of whether you want to do, YouTube, maybe a long form content? What's your plans?
So I still don't really have any plans for YouTube. I might try to start doing some shorts for that. I primarily film in, the IG realm. So I'm getting that vertical filming for IG. I just want to try to make content that is appealing to people. I always call myself more of like a solid intermediate. I don't think I'm that great of a rider. I definitely have lots of room for improvement. I think I've been making a lot of improvement in these last 2 years, with starting to hit drops, starting to work on jumps, starting to finally get some whips in. So just kind of showing progress and trying to encourage more women to get out on bikes too. We talk about a lot of older people, and me included, older, right, getting into biking. They're not starting till their 40s or 50s or 60s. You hear that a lot with men, and I want women to see too that like, hey, you don't have to be in your 20s to start mountain biking and doing some of these extreme trails. Like you can start this kind of a little bit later in life and progress. So I'm hoping to kind of catch some of that in my content and show that also too, like, it's okay to fail. It's okay to fall. It's okay to hit a tree sometimes. I think there's so much that we see on Instagram too and social media of just everybody doing it amazing, right? And they're doing all these great jumps and all these great drops and they're hitting all these amazing trails. And that can be kind of discourage. You're a beginner or an intermediate biker and you're trying to progress, but like you're having falls still, you're having slide out still, your technique is still kind of lacking and growing in certain areas. It can be kind of frustrating to be like, oh my God, these people are just so good. They're just so good. It's just so easy for them.
Yeah.
But seeing the people that are showing like how many takes it took for them to get that jump, how many times it took them to get up the courage to do that drop, or just seeing weird little random like slide outs and spills from like really riders to pro riders. I think it's so important to capture that and show that, because otherwise it can get really, again, discouraging to see like, oh man, I'm just gonna hang up the bike because I'm just not getting any better. Well, so I'm trying to show
I see these like the 12-year-olds at the bike park just totally sending it, and you're like, like these 12 and 14-year-olds just like, I'll never be as good as them ever. And they're like 12 years old. You
Right?
know
I
what I
know these
mean?
kids. Gosh.
You know, you see like somebody
But
that's, you know,
it's fun to try.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I would pride myself more on, so the one thing I can do, and I'm going to try to do in this next year, is work on my video skills, my video editing skills, my, you know, so that's the one thing that's, you know, I'm never going to be like a top notch writer, but you can put in the effort to be like, hey, I'm never going to be a pro writer, but I could work on being a really good video storyteller. So I can work on that. And fortunately for me, actually, I got a gig just recently doing photos and video for the agency I work for. So one of the things I do is part time is I go to these events and I take pictures and video of these like events to where it's like for first responders and stuff like that. And then eventually it could even do like to where if there's a natural disaster like a hurricane, you go out on site, you pretty much go up in Black Hawk helicopter, fly you around, you take pictures and videos of like the efforts of going on, you know, to try to help people out. But that's one of the gigs I just got recently. And to do that, to take photos and to do the video editing stuff, I get to do that kind of semi on the professional side. It's not my main job, but I get to do that. So hopefully some of that will, I get more time to do it and it'll translate over eventually into my own personal like videos and stuff as well. All right. So we are, wow, we're at an hour and 30 plus minutes already. So we'll wrap it up here. Um, so great to talk to you. And I appreciate so much of you coming on the show and sharing everything. And you got such a great, funny personality. Really enjoyed talking to you. I really enjoy your Instagram. And I hope to see you out at one of these events if you come out here to the West, where you come out to Sedona Mountain Bike Fest and or something like that. Hopefully, Mark can talk you into coming out to like one of those events, and you know, maybe get to meet in person one day.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Fingers crossed for Sedona Mountain Bike Fest. It's been on my calendar to try to do the last couple years, and it just hasn't come to fruition. So maybe 2025 will be the year. But
Yeah,
yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. This was
yeah.
a lot of fun. Thank
Oh yeah, and yeah, like I said, love your personality,
you.
love your energy. Such a funny, vibrant person you seem like. So I would love to meet you in person and kind of hang out. And, you know, hopefully get out to Sedona, maybe chill at the podcast house, what we call the podcast house out there. And I seen, oh, you was
Ooh, fun.
at Bentonville. You was on a podcast, right? In Bentonville. Oh, kind of lost you
Oh, I
there.
think oh, yeah.
Oh, they're back. Oh, the technical difficulties of this thing. Oh, we'll see if she comes back. If not, we'll end it here. Thank you so much, Kim, for being on the show. Oh, okay, there you are. You're back. You're back. So, but yeah, I know you was at Bentonville. You was on the podcast out there, correct?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, for Bike
And I will
Fest.
say, like, the one that really highlighted. Do you know Amanda Hamilton?
Yes, I love Amanda.
Amanda, like I kid you not, she should be a podcaster. She
Oh my
is
gosh.
she is such a natural at podcasting. Like she would be like an incredible host to do a podcast, I think.
100%. I love that she I call her commander in chief. She's so great and thing. Yeah, she's wonderful.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us on the 8th edition of the Trail Monster podcast. And please continue doing what you do on IG and just making us laugh. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for being on the show, and have a great night, everybody.
Thanks.
Good night.
Bye.
All right, that should get us out of the live. Thank you so much for being on. Oh, let me try to do this real quick.